A battered guitar worth millions, secret meetings in Hawaii, a mysterious phone call from the President of the United States, and at the center of it all, a braided, bandana-wearing outlaw who the federal government was determined to destroy. In 1990, they finally caught up with him, seizing everything he owned. Most artists would have been finished, but what happened next would cement this man's place as one of the most beloved figures in American history. Abbott, Texas, 1933. While the Great Depression ravages America, a baby boy is born to two struggling musicians. They name him Willie Hugh Nelson. His father repairs cars by day and plays poker by night. His mother disappears when Willie is 6 months old. When Willie is 3, his father remarries and moves away, leaving Willie and his sister Bobbie with their grandparents in a small farming community where cotton is king and music is salvation. His grandfather, a blacksmith who dies when Willie is 6, gives the boy something profound, a love of music and the message that it can lift you out of any darkness. The old man would sing hymns at his forge, the hammer strikes keeping rhythm with the melodies. His grandmother saves up her egg money and orders something from the Sears and Roebuck catalog that will change music history, an $8 Stella guitar. She also makes sure both Willie and Bobbie take music lessons, paying with eggs, milk, and whatever else she can spare. Willie starts writing songs at age 7, sitting under the giant oak tree in his grandparents' yard. The Methodist Church becomes his first stage, where he and Bobbie perform hymns every Sunday. By age 10, he's playing in the John Rajcek Bohemian Polka Band, absorbing the Czech and German musical influences that would later inform his unique style. The local cotton gin pays him 50 cents and all the soda he can drink. At 13, he lands his first regular gig at John's Place in West Texas, playing honky-tonks where chicken wire protects the band from flying bottles. The 1950s see Willie bouncing between jobs: Air Force, medical discharge, Baylor University, dropout, and a string of radio stations where he works as a disc jockey. These radio jobs prove crucial, exposing him to every kind of music: Western swing, blues, jazz, and pop standards. He marries Martha Matthews at 18, and they have 3 children. But the marriage is volatile. Martha sews his stage clothes herself. They can't afford store-bought. In 1960, Willie finally makes it to Nashville. The city is booming with the Nashville sound, polished country music aimed at suburban audiences. But this smooth style is a million miles from the music Willie hears in his head, music shaped by Abbott's mix of country, gospel, polka, and blues. He takes any job he can find, selling encyclopedias door to door, working as a radio DJ, selling vacuum cleaners. His songs catch attention, but not as he hopes. Family Bible sells for $50 to pay rent. Nightlife goes for $150. Then comes Crazy. Willie knows it's special, but he's behind on rent again, and Pamper Music offers him $400. Patsy Cline records it, and it becomes one of the most played jukebox songs of all time. Each song he sells feels like trading his dreams for survival. The music industry signs him to various labels: Liberty Records, Monument Records, RCA Victor. But every time Willie tries to record his own music, producers force him into the Nashville sound. They bring in string sections to cover his guitar playing, make him sing in strict time instead of his natural phrasing, add choirs and echo effects. Everything unique about Willie Nelson gets buried under layers of production. For nearly a decade, he plays by their rules, wears suits picked out by record label executives, keeps his hair short because long hair doesn't sell in the suburbs. The albums barely sell. The shows are sparsely attended. Depression sets in. Willie starts drinking heavily. He buys a small farm outside Nashville, where he raises pigs and tries to find some peace, reminding himself of the simple life he knew in Abbott. Then in 1969, his house in Tennessee burns down. Willie rushes in to save 2 things: a pound of marijuana and his guitar, a Martin N20 Classical he's named Trigger. The fire should have been the final straw. Another sign that Nashville isn't for him, but Willie Nelson sees it differently. Standing in those ashes, Willie doesn't know it yet, but in a few months he'll walk into an old armory building in Austin that's been turned into a music venue. The crowd will be unlike anything Nashville could imagine. Hippies and cowboys, bikers and college students. And what happens next will shake country music to its core. Austin, Texas, 1972. Willie Nelson walks into the Armadillo World Headquarters, a converted National Guard armory where hippies and cowboys somehow coexist. Standing on stage, he looks nothing like the clean-cut Nashville star he tried to be. His hair hangs past his shoulders, braided with a red bandana. A beard grows wild and untamed. Trigger, That same Martin N20 classical guitar he saved from the fire hangs across his chest like a shield. The audience is a sight Nashville could never imagine. College students in tie-dye sit next to ranch hands in cowboy boots. Long-haired hippies share joints with short-haired veterans. This isn't just a concert venue. It's a cultural revolution in the making. The Armadillo becomes ground zero for a new kind of music scene, where traditional country meets counterculture in a cloud of marijuana smoke and beer foam. His band features his sister Bobbie on piano, bringing the family music full circle from those early days in Abbott. Paul English, a former gang member turned drummer, keeps time with a style that ignores Nashville's rules. There's no string section, no choir, no elaborate production, just raw, stripped-down country music infused with jazz timing, folk storytelling, and blues emotion. When Willie plays trigger, it's unlike anything in country music. His guitar solos borrow from Django Reinhardt and Mexican folk music, creating a sound that's both ancient and modern. Word spreads through Texas like wildfire. Musicians who feel strangled by Nashville's rules start making pilgrimages to Austin. Waylon Jennings becomes a frequent visitor. They start plotting a musical rebellion, recording when they want, with who they want. The record labels back in Nashville are horrified. Long hair, beards, denim, and leather have replaced rhinestone suits and cowboy ties. In 1973, Willie throws the first 4th of July picnic in Dripping Springs. The lineup reads like a manifesto. Willie and Waylon, Chris Christopherson, Tom T. Hall, and a young unknown named Bob Dylan shows up unannounced. The crowd swells to over 40,000 in the Texas heat. What Nashville sees as a recipe for disaster becomes a template for modern music festivals. The event becomes legendary, with impromptu jam sessions lasting until dawn and boundaries between performers and audience dissolving in the Texas sun. But the real revolution comes in 1975. Willie convinces Columbia Records to let him produce his own album, something unheard of in country music. The result is Red-Headed Stranger, a sparse concept album about a preacher who kills his unfaithful wife. The production is minimal, often just Willie's voice and trigger. The record executives are horrified. They want to add strings, sweeten the sound. Willie refuses to change a note. Columbia reluctantly releases the album as is. It becomes one of the decade's biggest hits. This success gives birth to the outlaw country movement. Willie and Waylon record Wanted the Outlaws with Tom Paul Glaser and Jesse Coulter. Released in 1976, it becomes country music's first platinum album. The album's success forces Nashville to acknowledge that country music can succeed without following their formula. By the end of the 1970s, Willie Nelson isn't just a country star, he's become a cultural phenomenon. His 4th of July picnics are national events. His concerts draw audiences from every background. He's appeared on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine multiple times. Even people who say they don't like country music make an exception for Willie. The outlaw movement he helped create has transformed not just country music, but American popular culture itself. But the outlaw is about to make his boldest move yet. As the decade draws to a close, Willie Nelson looks at his hard-won freedom and decides to use it in a way nobody expects. He's going to take his music where no country artist has dared to go before. The control room of Columbia's Studio B in New York City falls silent as Willie Nelson tunes his battered guitar. It's 1978, and the outlaw king of country music is about to make the riskiest move of his career. He's preparing to record an album of pop standards. Songs like Stardust, Georgia on My Mind, and All of Me. Songs his grandfather taught him on that $8 Stella guitar 4 decades ago. The record label executives think Willie has lost his mind. Country fans won't buy it, they say. Pop audiences won't accept him, but Willie just smiles and starts playing Stardust on trigger, his battered guitar transforming Irving Berlin's 1927 classic into something entirely new. His jazz-influenced guitar work weaves around the melody, while his distinctive voice finds new emotions in these well-worn lyrics. Producer Booker T. Jones recognizes the magic immediately. He brings in some of New York's finest jazz musicians, creating arrangements that complement Willie's unique phrasing, rather than forcing him into conventional patterns. The sessions become legendary, with Willie often nailing songs in one take, finding nuances that had escaped even Frank Sinatra. His interpretations draw from both his honky-tonk days and his early love of jazz guitarists like Django Reinhardt. Stardust, the album, becomes a phenomenon, staying on Billboard's country album chart for 10 years, 540 weeks of continuous sales. The success launches Willie into mainstream stardom. Hollywood calls, and Robert Redford personally requests him for The Electric Horseman. During the filming of Honeysuckle Rose, Willie writes, "On the road again, on an airline barf bag at 30,000 feet, creating what would become his signature tune. The 1980s see Willie Nelson become music's greatest collaborator. His unlikely duet with Julio Iglesias, To All the Girls I've Loved Before, tops charts worldwide. He forms the Highwaymen with Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, and Chris Christopherson, creating country music's first supergroup. The Highwaymen tours become legendary events, with each man performing solo sets before coming together, their deep voices and deeper friendship creating something magical. His biggest impact comes in 1985 when he organizes the first Farm Aid concert with Neil Young and John Mellencamp. The event raises over $7 million for family farmers, launching an annual tradition that will eventually raise over $70 million. This activism transforms Willie into more than just a musician. He becomes a cultural icon, a voice for rural America. Then comes 1990. The IRS presents Willie with a bill for $32 million in back taxes. The government seizes everything: his houses, his recording studio, even his gold records. The only thing they can't take is Trigger, which Willie's daughter Lana has smuggled to Hawaii. Instead of declaring bankruptcy, Willie makes an album about it. The IRS tapes, Who Will Buy My Memories, is sold directly to the public, with proceeds going to pay his tax debt. He appears in Taco Bell commercials, poking fun at his situation. His fans organize fundraisers, and by 1993, he settled his debt through a combination of asset sales, lawsuit settlements, and album proceeds. The experience, rather than damaging his reputation, enhances it. He emerges as a folk hero, the outlaw who took on the IRS and lived to sing about it. The way he handles the crisis becomes a case study in crisis management, taught in business schools alongside his innovative approach to touring and merchandising. This period sets the stage for Willie's next transformation. Having conquered Nashville, Hollywood, and mainstream America, he's about to become something even more unlikely, a counterculture icon for a new generation. The same qualities that made him an outlaw in country music are about to make him a guru for the alternative movement. A massive cloud of smoke drifts across a festival field in Amsterdam, 1998. Willie Nelson stands on stage at the Cannabis Cup playing "Roll Me Up and Smoke Me When I Die" to a cheering crowd. It's a long way from the honky-tonks of Texas, but somehow it makes perfect sense. The 65-year-old country star has become an unlikely hero of the counterculture, advocating for marijuana legalization decades before it becomes politically acceptable. Where most artists his age are settling into nostalgia tours, Willie Nelson is becoming more radical with time. He converts his tour buses to run on biodiesel, launching a company called Willie to promote alternative fuels. He speaks out against the Iraq War when many country artists are waving the flag. He fights for small farmers, environmental causes, and animal rights. His music evolves too. Teatro, recorded in an old movie theater with producer Daniel Lanois, reimagines his sound with hypnotic rhythms. He records with Rob Thomas, Kid Rock, and Dave Matthews. Each collaboration adds new layers to his legacy. Young artists cite him as an influence, not just country singers, but rockers, rappers, jazz musicians. The political establishment doesn't know what to make of him. Here's a man who can play chess with Jimmy Carter one day and smoke on the White House roof with Carter's son the next. He performs at both Democratic and Republican fundraisers, but always on his own terms. When asked about his politics, he simply says, "I'm for anything that helps the family farmer and stops the war." Trigger, his Martin N20 classical guitar, becomes as famous as the man himself. The hole worn through its face from decades of picking becomes a symbol of endurance. Willie refuses offers of free replacements from Martin Guitar Company. "When Trigger goes, I'll go too," he says. The guitar's surface is covered in autographs, a who's who of American music scratched into the wood. The Farm Aid concerts continue growing. What started as a response to the 1980s farm crisis evolves into a movement for sustainable agriculture. His advocacy grows bolder with age. He performs at Occupy Wall Street rallies, supports gay rights long before it's mainstream, and becomes a vocal advocate for hemp farming. His cannabis advocacy takes on new dimensions. He launches Willie's Reserve, a marijuana brand committed to supporting small growers and sustainable practices. The company becomes a model for celebrity cannabis brands, emphasizing environmental responsibility and social justice. When states begin legalizing marijuana, they often consult Willie's team about regulation and small business opportunities. By the end of the 2000s, Willie Nelson has become something rare in American culture, a figure who transcends politics, genre, and generations. Conservatives respect his entrepreneurial spirit and support for farmers. Liberals love his environmental and social activism. Musicians admire his artistry. Fans cherish his authenticity. Every cause he champions eventually moves from the fringe to the mainstream. Marijuana legalization spreads across America. Alternative energy becomes big business. Organic farming goes from hippie hobby to multi-billion-dollar industry. Even his biodiesel venture, though ultimately unsuccessful as a business, helps promote alternative fuels. But even as he approaches his 80s, Willie Nelson isn't finished evolving. A new century brings new challenges and opportunities. The man who helped create outlaw country is about to show the world that age is just another rule meant to be broken. A cold night in Nashville, 2019. The Bridgestone Arena is packed for Willie Nelson's 86th birthday celebration. Keith Richards, Dave Matthews, Chris Stapleton, and George Strait wait in the wings. But when Willie walks on stage, time seems to stop. The same battered guitar hangs from his neck. The same bandana crowns his gray braids. The same defiant spark lights his eyes. He launches into Whiskey River, just as he's done thousands of times before. Something remarkable happens. 3 generations of fans sing along. Grandparents who remember him from the Armadillo World headquarters. Their children who grew up with his Farm Aid concerts. Their grandchildren who discovered him through duets with current stars. At an age when most artists have long retired, Willie Nelson is more prolific than ever. Between 2010 and 2024, he releases over 20 albums. Each one explores new territory. From standards to reggae, from blues to his own compositions. His voice has weathered, grown more fragile with time, but like good whiskey, it's only gained character. The touring never stops. While other artists his age use teleprompters and pre-recorded tracks, Willie performs entirely live. His family band still features Sister Bobbie on piano, though many original members have passed on. He plays cannabis festivals and state fairs, arenas and clubs. Every show is different. He follows his muse, calling out songs spontaneously to the band. His influence on younger artists grows stronger with each passing year. Chris Stapleton, Sturgill Simpson, and Tyler Childers credit him with showing how to stay true to yourself in the music business. Casey Musgraves and Margot Price see him as proof that country music can be both traditional and progressive. Even rappers like Snoop Dogg and Post Malone want to work with him. Personal losses mount. His sister Bobbie passes in 2022, ending their 8-decade musical partnership. Paul English, his drummer since the early days, dies in 2020. But Willie channels grief into creativity. When the pandemic shuts down touring, he live streams concerts from his ranch. He records the Willie Nelson family with his children, Lucas and Micah, bringing his musical journey full circle. Trigger, his faithful guitar, continues to deteriorate. The hole in its face grows larger. The autographs fade, but like its owner, it refuses to quit. Guitar magazines analyze his distinctive playing style, the classical finger-picking mixed with jazz and blues that Nashville once rejected. Awards pile up. The Library of Congress Gershwin Prize, Kennedy Center honors, even a Nobel Prize nomination for his humanitarian work. But the recognition he seems to value most comes from fellow musicians who still seek his counsel and collaboration. At 90, Willie Nelson is part living legend, part beloved grandfather figure of American music. His annual 4th of July picnic has become a national institution. Farm Aid celebrates 4 decades of advocacy for family farmers. His birthday is practically a national holiday in Texas. In a career spanning 8 decades, Willie Nelson never really transformed at all. The world changed around him, but he remained true to himself. That poor boy from Abbott, Texas, who once sold his songs for $50 has become something rare in American culture, a figure who unites rather than divides. The odyssey from Nashville reject to American icon is complete, but somewhere tonight, Willie Nelson is probably on a tour bus, heading to another show, Trigger by his side, ready to sing Whiskey River one more time. Because legends never really retire, they just keep rolling.